Alright, my friends, it's time for another Christmas story, and tonight we're doing one of my favorites, The Polar Express. So without further ado, let's get started. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly, silently, while I listened for sounds. A sound a friend had told me I'd never hear. The ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night I did hear sounds, though not ringing of bells. From outside came the sound of a hissing steam, a squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. I was wrapped in an apron of steam. It was wrapped in an apron of steam, snowflakes falling loudly around it. The conductor stood in the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest, then looked up at my window. Put on my slipper and robes. I tippy-toed down the stairs and out the door. All aboard, the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. Well, are you coming? Where? I asked. Why, the North Pole, of course, was his answer. This is the Polar Express. I took his outstretched hand and he pulled me aboard. So I'm just making sure these pages aren't sticking together. Because they're not numbered, so I don't know. Alright, I'm pretty sure there's no extra page in there. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and ate candy with nugget centers and white as snow. We drank hot cocoa as thick and rich as molten chocolate bars. Outside, the light of town and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. Soon there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through the cold and dark forest, while lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we would scrape the moon, but the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along, rolling our peaks and through valleys, like a car on a roller coaster. The mountains turned into hills the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice. The great polar ice caps. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. There, said the conductor, is the North Pole. North Pole. It was a huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first we saw no elves. They all gathered at the center of the city, the conductor told us. That's where Santa will give away the first gift of Christmas. Who receives the first gift? We all asked. The conductor answered, he will choose one of you. Look, shouted one of the children. The elves outside. They saw hundreds of elves. As our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no further, we stopped and the conductor led us outside. Hold on. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They were prancing and pacing, ringing their silver sleigh bells that hung from their harness. It was a magical sound like nothing I'd ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart as Santa appeared. The elf cheered wildly. He marched over to us and pointed to me and said, let's have this fellow here. He jumped into his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee and he asked, now, what would you like for Christmas? Knew that I could have any gift I could imagine. The thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one of the silver bells from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug and told an elf to cut a bell from the reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood holding the bell high above his head and called out, the first gift of Christmas. As clock struck midnight, as the elves roared with approval, Santa held the bell to me and put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeers' names He cracked his whip, and the team charged forward and climbed into the air, Santa circling once above us, then disappeared into the cold, dark polar sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa Claus's sleigh. Let's hurry outside. Look for it. One of the children said, but the train had suddenly lurched and started moving. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children and stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I could not hear him. What? I yelled out. He cupped his hands around his mouth. Merry Christmas, he shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud blast from the whistle and sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When I looked as if everyone had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was a silver bell. There was a note. I found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix a hole in your pocket. Signed Mr. C. I shook the bell and it made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I shook the bell, my parents had not heard the sound. Alright, well that looks like that's the end of tonight's story. I sure hope you enjoyed that one. That one is definitely one of my favorites. So until we see each other again tomorrow and I do another one, because I got a bunch of books down here to read. So happy holidays to all of you, and I hope you're all staying healthy.